Hi, I'm Gabe.
And I'm Kat.
And we're the Ghouls Next Door. And this is the second part of our Jordan Peele episode. I knew it. I knew it was going to happen.
Yeah.
I called it. I was like...
We knew one of the directors that we were going to cover was going to be a two-parter, and I'm happy that we went with this one.
Yeah, because it was very close to being Guillermo. It's very close to being Takashi Miike. And it was like, all right, let's just do... Like, Jordan... there's way too much to say. And so this week, we are just talking about his films. Yeah. So if you didn't catch the first part and you want to hear about his backstory, his motivations, and like his themes, then you can check it out. It was our episode from last week and hear about what that's about.
Yeah.
But now we're going to talk about the films Us and Get Out and really dive into that.
Their fantasticness.
Yeah. So hopefully you've watched it because this is 100% spoiler town.
Yeah.
Like, there's no stops.
You
We're
had
straight into it.
A whole thing last week where we told you to watch the films. If you didn't, why?
Yeah, I can't help you. And when you don't listen. When you do this. Okay? Like, I get, what am I supposed to do?
You're not in charge anymore.
We were rooting for you. I have never yelled at a listener. So I hope you... That's a Tyra Banks from America's Next Top Model reference. Because nothing is safe here. But enjoy our part about Jordan Peele's films.
Yeah.
And then we'll do a little wrap up. And then we'll see you in the new year.
2020.
Woo! It's going to be a fun time. Yeah. And I'm excited to see you there. Okay.
Bye.
Enjoy.
Films. Yeah, films. Yeah, films. We watch some films. Now let's talk about those films. And all that spooky stuff. And all that spooky stuff.
All right, so we're going to talk about two films.
Spoiler Town. We are in...
If you have not seen either...
Spoiler Town.
We're
Here
in
we
Spoiler
are.
Town. If you've not seen either of these films, you pause this.
Yes.
They're not that long.
Yeah.
Watch both of them in rapid
enjoyable.
succession.
Yeah.
They're fantastic.
Then come
you will
back.
have a good time. Then come back. And then listen to all the things we say.
Yeah.
Then rewatch those films.
Yes.
And then just have a great time.
Okay, so first we'll wait. Okay, did you watch it?
So
that was super cool. Right? Wasn't it great?
Yeah, it was so great, right? Everyone
You're
loved
welcome.
it.
I'm glad we suggested it to you.
Also, what were you doing before? You should have watched it already. Come on, get out of here. Don't make puppets. Make movies. Like, go watch movies.
Yeah.
That's not a good joke, but whatever. It was funnier the first time. So we watched Get Out from 2017 in the IMDb, we thank for our summaries. A young African-American visits his white girlfriend's parents for the weekend, where his simmering uneasiness about their reception of him eventually reaches a boiling point.
Yeah.
Get Out is a masterpiece and a time, and it's fantastic.
Yeah. So one fun thing about Get Out is that it's kind of this weird, like some of the influences of this is Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, I think is what it's called. The film where it's like a white woman who's bringing her black boyfriend. And it's like during a time when that was like, what? And how many iterations of that film have we seen? I think there's one with Ashton Kutcher. And there's like a new one, but there's like an apocalypse happening. There's like a new show where it's like a black boyfriend. And no, it might be opposite. It's a white boyfriend. And the black dad has to like unite with him to go find the daughter / girlfriend. But it's like the apocalypse. But it's literally the same thing because like that's the initial thing. And it's like, oh, you're a different race, dating my daughter. And like we've seen that quite a lot.
Yeah.
The like, oh. The only, like, point of contention in this film is that there's people of two different races.
Yeah.
And that's the plot, right? And then another...
deep plot, man.
Yeah, and it's been reused, right? And then on top of that, he also has been inspired by Stepford Wives. Yeah. Which we will talk about in the coming year, in 2020. It's on the books. But kind of that idea of, like, these, like, empty shells or, like, people who are ghosts in the machine. Of these, like, just walking, perfect bodies.
Yes.
And that's what we get with Lakeith. I hope I said his name right. Who plays Andre.
His name's Keith?
Lakeith.
Oh.
Yeah. So,
I
Get
didn't
Out.
know the actor's name. I just know he's great. He's in
Yeah.
a new movie, too. I don't remember.
He's in
what
Knives Out.
Yeah. Ah, yes.
Yeah. So, and if you haven't seen Knives Out, you should go see it. It's fun. So in Get Out, if you have not seen it, what we have is a young man named Chris who is a photographer. And the first thing we see before we even see Chris is his photography.
Yeah.
And it's like very honest, like, you know, clear photography of like New York. And
Yeah.
it's like as from the point of view in the eyes of someone who lives there
Yeah.
and sees it for what it is, right?
Yeah.
And then we see him, and then we also see his girlfriend, who's played by Marnie. I don't know her real name right now, but Marnie from Girls. And it
Yes.
was like the perfect like white girlfriend you could pick for this film.
Yeah,
She's
and
phenomenal.
She's actually in another film where we just randomly
yeah.
started. It was not randomly. It was we just started thinking she was like being typecast.
Yeah,
as
as, like, a
this white
white
chick who
woman.
murders people of color.
Yeah.
We're like, sweetie,
After
don't do
dating them.
this.
Yeah.
Don't do this. Should not be your typecast. This is bad.
It turned out better. She
Yeah,
was a
it
better
was okay
person
at
in
the
that
end.
one. But I would say it's good on the casting of that
Yeah.
film, which is the perfection on Netflix. Because if you've seen Get Out and you've seen her as a villain in a biracial relationship, you are very easily like, you know,
Oh, you're ready
you
to
believe
see it.
You
Yeah.
believe what's happening, so you fall for the twist really easily.
Yeah.
So they played in that. Like,
Yeah.
and I think she played in that, which is fun.
Yeah.
So we have her, and she tells Chris that he's going to go visit her and meet her white parents.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the premise.
It's the whole thing.
While they're there, turns out it's at the same time, what a coincidence, as like this really creepy cultish white people gathering.
Yeah, like there's this big party happening there while he's visiting.
Yeah.
Which she's like acting like, oh, I didn't know that was this weekend. It's like
Yeah.
everyone's just looking at her like, ugh.
Yeah. And
Why?
spoilers, which is this whole time, there are no good white people in this film.
Sure aren't.
And that was very on purpose because we're very used to the white savior, right? Like we're very used to having at least one good one, right? That's there to help us, you know, if
Yeah.
we are the product. But in this case, just like, nope. What I think is interesting is we have one of the first scenes that really sets the tone for what we're going to experience is like Keith walking in the suburban neighborhood, and he is incredibly uncomfortable. He's on the phone and he's like, I feel like I'm in a maze, which is another shout out to The Shining. But he's like uncomfortable, and it's like this weird like twist, because it's not something you're expecting. Like you would expect like a white person who's walking through like, you know, a certain neighborhood and being like, oh, I don't know, they're gonna run. Like they lock their doors when they drive through this street, right? And then we get this reversal of this like man who's uncomfortable, and it is 100%, I would say, a call to instances like Trayvon Martin.
Yeah.
Like right from the Get Out, we are like in there, right?
Yeah.
And because he was just a boy with Skittles and Arizona tea in his pocket, walking through a suburb.
Yeah.
And that's it, right? And so the same thing, right? Like
Yeah.
takes him right out. Like no hesitation. Like there's like no, he's not holding any punches.
Yeah.
He starts with that. He starts with like, this is hurting. Like this is gonna hurt. Right.
Yeah.
And then we get into, you know, Chris and his situation. And one of the first things that we experience is they get pulled over or not pulled over, they hit a deer.
Yeah.
Or rather, a deer hits them.
Yeah.
And then they call the police. And the cop asks for his ID, even though he wasn't driving. And she goes into white saviors mode and is like yelling at him. And there's like this face that Chris has when that's happening where he is just like, I cannot believe that you were talking to that police officer like that.
Yeah.
Like if that were me or anyone who looked like me, that's what happens to us. Like this is like a call over to Philando Castile now.
Yeah.
Like you don't, like you can't even go get your license, right?
Yeah.
Like he is just peppering them in there. He's like, here we go. We're going to make you feel really uncomfortable. Like anyone of color who's in there knows.
Yeah.
Like immediately now, like this is a problem. Like we're already, and if you know Swahili, then you definitely know it's a problem because the intro song says like, get out.
It's dangerous.
It
Don't
says
go
like,
there.
yeah, brother, like listen to the clues and the warnings in Swahili. So if you do that, but then we get to the family, and the dad's super awkward. He says, like, tell me about this old thing. He says, I would have voted for Obama third term.
Yeah, it's just lots of really, like, uncomfortable things that white people could say.
Yeah.
Just repeated, just, like, ad nauseum, where you're just like, stop.
Yeah.
Oh, cringy white people.
Yeah.
Oh, like, that's, like, the whole scene.
Yeah.
And I did want to go back to the walking down the street thing too, because there's a Key and Peele skit that is like, before this happened, before Get Out existed, there is a Key and Peele skit where a black man's walking down the street in a suburban town, and he has a hoodie where the outside of the hoodie is a white teenager face.
Yeah.
So he just puts his hood up,
and then
and
they
it
don't
looks like
him.
a white person, so the cop just drives by like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I just thought it was like really cool that you were saying
great.
Before how it like loops back to Key and Peele when no one was like,
you
really
don't realize it.
hey,
Yeah.
Coming back full
That's so
circle.
funny.
To Get Out. So
Yeah. Jordan, we see you.
Yeah.
We're weird fans. We're weird, obnoxious fans who watch you a lot.
yeah, I literally watch Key and Peele just like ad nauseum.
Yeah.
Because it's fantastic.
It started our friendship.
It did.
Yeah, it was like the dawn of
Yes.
the Ghouls friendship. Yeah. So continuing in it, right? We also have this story about their grandfather having lost in the Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
I think to Usain Bolt, or no, that wouldn't make sense because that's more modern. I'm totally missing it. But
I don't know.
to a person of color.
Yeah.
Because I'm very bad at sports in the Olympics. But a person of
Sports
color.
go sports.
And that's what is like, was his like greatest tragedy, is that he didn't win, right?
Yeah.
And it's like our first warning.
Yeah, we're like, ooh.
Right.
You harbor some resentment. Specifically, it seems, towards people of color.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And also, like, our first jump scare is the African American gardener, like, hands helping person.
Groundskeeper. of sorts?
That's the word. Is that scene where, like, Chris goes out to smoke a cigarette and he runs?
Yeah,
at
like,
him,
full
runs
on at
past
him, which is like...
which is like, that's because, spoilers, it's the grandpa in there. Like, reliving.
Big spoilers. That jumps all the way to the end.
Yeah.
Grandpa is in that man.
Yes, and he's running fast now because he's in the black guy. And that's the whole thing, right? That's the whole reason why he did that. I don't understand why the grandmother...
That's why he started the whole thing.
Yes,
which is wild.
Yes. Yeah.
That's some...
Yeah. Yeah. So, let's get into big old spoilery town.
I'm reacting like I didn't know that. I did know that,
it's cool.
But it's
it's
fun.
cool.
I feel like it adds to the experience for everyone.
For our listeners who are like, oh, crap. So we're going to get in our spoiler pants now. So what happens is after this incredibly uncomfortable situation where all these white people are asking him totally uncomfortable questions, and he is getting even more uncomfortable. There's a situation that he is, he's a photographer, and he wears his camera almost like a shield, like it's around him, and he like takes pictures to kind of like separate himself from the group and just be an observer and like hide behind that, right? It's this defense, which is another call to racism, in that cameras have been a way for us getting justice, right? Like if you think of Rodney King, or any time when we're filming injustices from police officers, like cameras can be protecting, right?
Yeah.
Like they, unfortunately, like that's sometimes the best, defense. So in his, like him taking pictures, he sees Lakeith, and he's just like, oh, good thing there's another brother here. And he's just like, well, yes. And he's like, super Stepford Wives.
Because an apple happens.
Yes. But he also like, he says something like, it's so nice to have like a brother here so you can have this experience. And his reaction is something like, yes, it would be. Like it's occurring to him that like, and that's like your first time like, something's wrong. But the way that he says that is like, you would feel better if there was another person of color here. Like it just dawns on him, right? And then there's like this weird conversation where this guy's always odd. And then his wife comes up, who is a much older white woman, and there's like he's like trying to connect the dots of like this does not make any sense. And so then he goes to leave. He tries to do the fist bump, and he ends up grabbing the apple, and it's like it's a comedy moment, but it's also like big red flag moment.
Ooh,
Yes.
run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
something that one of the most terrifying things in, I'd say, cinematic history now is the sunken place.
Yeah.
And so it's where her mom is a hypnotist, and she puts him under by twirling her teacup, her spoon in her
like
teacup.
some real manipulative.
And that really awful sound
bowl.
that now, if you hear it, you kind of like tense up because you're like,
yeah.
no. And she's like, you're sinking into the floor, and it's just this like the teardrops, the wide eyes, and then he's just in this like blackness, and he's just seeing like as if it's a screen his existence.
Yeah.
And so you get a glimpse into what the others like Keith and the person that the grandpa and grandma are in are experiencing. Like they just sit back and watch their bodies be piloted and never get to live their lives.
Yeah.
Right. And it's terrifying. Right. And it's like the sunken place. What Jordan has said about it is that it is like, it's a representation of these people who, no matter what you do, like you can scream out as much as you want. And like, no matter how you scream, the system will silence you.
Yeah.
So it's just like, we exist in the silent place as well, or the sunken place.
Yeah.
Right? We find out later that there's this whole familial thing, cult time, where they take white people and put them into the bodies.
Yeah, it's a straight up slave auction.
Yes.
Ugh.
Yes, there's a whole, there's a lot of like really fun things that are happening in here as far as like odes to things, right? But like one of it is that there's a silent auction. And auctioning is how you used to get slaves. Right? And that happens, and they just kind of like put their little paddles up. The highest bidder gets this body, and for whatever reason. So he's sitting in a chair, and he gets the whole thing, and he talks to the man who's going to get his body, and it is the blind man who's like an art dealer.
Yeah. And they're talking about the photography and like his eye and like.
Yes.
Ugh.
And Chris says like, why black people? Right? And he goes, I don't care what race you are. I want your eyes, man. I want what you see through.
Yeah.
Right? And there's so much in that response. One, it's this idea of colorblindness, right? Like that they think that it's not because of the fact that these are black people that they're taking advantage of. Like they are fancying themselves above that.
Yeah.
They're like, we're not, the KKK. We're just people who know science, and it just happens. We know science, and we're using that to like couple ourselves with like the most genetically enhanced bodies, which just happen to be people of color so far. Right. There's also this idea, the phrase when he says, I want what you see through. Right. Yeah. And that's in itself a very big conversation, in that it's like, you want, like, the way that he sees the world isn't just his eyes. It's his experiences. It's his life. It's like you see the world. He sees the world that way because of the life that he's lived. Yeah. I want what you see through is like, I want to see your point of view. And he, no matter how many times he gets into somebody's body, that would never happen. Yeah. Like he'll never get those eyes. That's not real because he's not Chris. And so he totally is missing the mark anyway. But there's like a lot of fun imagery here where Chris pulls cotton out of the chair to put into his ears, all like Odysseus style with the wax to not hear the sirens calls kind of thing. So he doesn't hear the swirly swirl and get put in the sunken place or knocked out. And so it's like, he puts the cotton in there, which is like, well, remember, he picked cotton, but this time it was for good, right? And then later he knocks out, he kills the dad.
With a
buck.
Yes.
Which is what they used to call the black slaves when they were up on the chopping block to get sold. He also kills the son, or like knocks the son out with this with the whitest, what is that sport that they play? Cricket. With a cricket ball. Which is like the most white person sports. He like knocks him out with that, which is like fun. And then and that's the thing too, is like you really have to pay attention to the weapons that are used, because it's like
everything means something.
Everything means something. And then like we even have I hate that I'm forgetting her name, but after she like thinks everything's fine and she's like upstairs listening to like the Dirty Dancing, I've had the time of my life, and then she's drinking milk and eating Fruit Loops.
Yeah.
And it was like, Jordan had said, like, he just wanted to think of her eating, like, the weirdest snack. And that, like, something childish, but, like, morphed because her childhood was morphed. But when I was watching it, I was like, it's so messed up because she literally took the white out and separated the colored parts from the cereal and was eating them separately. And I was like, when I watched it the first time, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
and then
but it was
like,
different.
Yeah, and I was like, oh my gosh.
I remember you saying that when we watched it.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe he was, but
maybe
when I
both,
read the
man.
information, he was just like, I wanted her to eat a twisted snack. And I was like, and it was.
And it also meant something.
Maybe I was just so wrapped up in this. And then I'd say like the most monumental part of this is the ending.
Yeah.
In that he is, chased down and the girlfriend is there and he can, like she's dying and he can kill her to put her out of her misery and doesn't. And there's this moment where we see on his face red and blue lights.
Yeah.
Because the police are there. And there's this moment when you're in the movie theater where there's an audible, like, terror reaction.
Yeah.
From the audience. Because in any other horror, and I remember watching this being like, oh my God, because any other horror movie where we have white protagonists, we would have been like, oh my God, yes, the police are here, it's all better. And as soon as you saw those lights, you're like, no, oh my God. He's
standing over her like, oh my God.
This cannot get any worse. And in the original script, it was going to be, like, he was going to end up locked up.
Yeah.
Or worse, right? And there was this outcry of people being like, we've heard that story, we've seen that dialogue, and we're kind of done with it.
Yeah.
Right? And so he took it back. And instead, what we have, again, spoilers, is his friend shows up because he's from the TSA, and we have this, like, a collective, like, emotion in the audience of just like, oh my God. And you, like, laugh, cry. Because you're just like, thank God. And he's like, I told you. He's like, I'm not going to tell you, say I told you so, but I did tell you so. And you have this, like, and he's just like, okay, whatever, let's go. But it was so, like, I don't think I've ever been that, like, united, really. Unless, like except for, like, the times when, like, maybe the protagonist fights back at the last bit, right? But not something so profound that you, like, and in a way that's so, like, political and that you wouldn't have thought about. But I just remember being like, if this was like Texas Chainsaw Massacre and cops showed up, you'd be like, oh, cool, we're saved. And for everyone to have been on the same page of like, we are
or it's
not.
like,
yeah,
something. If you can acknowledge it in a movie, you should be able to acknowledge it in society.
Yeah. And that's what I think. Like, out of
saying.
the whole film, you could definitely, like, I could see people writing it off as a comedy, right? And I could see people being like, yeah, it's uncomfortable. It's absurd that white people be taking the, bodies of Black people, right? But when you get to that part, it's really undeniable. That, like, initial feeling, you really can't argue that. You can't argue why that would make you feel that way without acknowledging that that is a real life thing that is traumatizing.
Yeah.
Like, it's like a big thing in the film that I feel like you just can't. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because it's just like also like one society, two horror movies in general, wherever there is a white protagonist at the end who survived.
Yeah.
What is that film with the zombies where that's what happens?
Where what happens?
Where the Black protagonist at the end gets shot by the cops. Dead. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Or like, the militiamen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We've already seen that. Or even if you want to...
Just like 100% society, but film that is directly correlated with that same like response.
And the fact that Romero didn't even know what he was saying then when he did that, right? Because he didn't mean to cast a Black man, right? But Jordan meant to. Jordan was, this was on purpose, and he said he's caught some, crap for it, but, he said he doesn't ever see himself writing with a white protagonist. Like, we've seen those stories, he said. And he has no right to tell those stories, right? Like, that's not his point of view. Those aren't what he sees through, right? Like, like, it's not going to happen. And I think it's like, it's okay, right? And if people are like, what if if a white person said, I'm not going to write a story about a Black person because I don't know what they've been through, I'd be like, good on you for finally understanding that you don't have a right to that.
Yeah,
and
those are
instead
your stories.
move to the side and let us tell some stories. Like we're not asking white people to tell black people stories. We're asking you to let us tell our stories, right?
Yes.
And I think that's like, to me, it's funny that they thought that was the
issue.
the response was just like, if a white person said that, I'd be like, I'd be glad. I'd be glad if they admitted that they have no right to those stories.
Yeah.
Because that'd be a big jump for them. But
Well, that's another thing.
we did. And so it'll probably be me talking again. Sorry, Kat.
No, it's okay. You have all the fun researchy facts. And these are things I also know, but
Yeah.
it's like,
I hope people
I saw
listening
Get
are
Out
like,
a while
"What?"
ago.
Yeah.
Whereas us, we saw very recently. We did
Yeah.
not rewatch Get Out for this. I've seen it a few times,
We
but like, it's
rewatched
been a
it a
minute.
few months ago because we made my boyfriend watch it.
No, I know, but what I'm saying is my brain does not operates within a week or
Gotcha.
even honestly day by day
Yes.
kind of memory schedule
Yeah.
where it releases the data that
Yeah.
was previously within. You asked me to talk
Jesse
about
Owens. That was the Olympic guy.
Hey,
All right, I've redeemed myself. Go,
look at
keep
you.
going.
But yeah, it's just like it doesn't matter if we watched it last week. Once the week has closed,
Yeah.
that information is gone.
Gotcha. Well, this might be news to you, and it might be news to the listener. One fun fact that I like to say is not a fun fact. It's just like a thing that happened was Get Out. One of my good friends, Jeff, went to see it with his girlfriend, who is a white woman. And I remember being like, you need to tell me, like, what? Because I went and saw it before him, I believe. And so I was like, I just need to know, like, I just want her to, like, turn and be like, listen, my parents are not like that. And, like, are we still good? Like, I loved this idea that there was, like, this, like, kind of turn of, like, where she would have to apologize,
Yeah.
you know? Like, and I thought that was, and I just remember, like, because it was a new relationship too, where I was like,
Yeah.
you guys going to see that? Is that where you're going to go see?
That's your date night?
That's real? Okay. Well, you tell me how that goes. It was fine. They had a good time. And now they're engaged. So, but we watched another thing. We watched Us from 2019 this year, which we actually went and saw a premiere of, and I was on a panel for Black Sci-Fi TV.
Because Gabe smarts.
Woo! And it was like right after it, and I'm like, I wish I had seen it beforehand and then went and saw it again and then was on the panel. Because I have so much more now that I've like watched it again and was able to like not do the passive thing.
Yeah.
You know, I was able to be like, oh,
this is panel
here.
2. This is part 2.
Yes. So here's my panel 2 discussion of Us. So a family's serene beach vacation turns to chaos when their doppelgangers appear and begin to terrorize them.
Yeah.
There's so much to say about this film. So what we have is Lupita as a child, and she is, what is her name? Adelaide, I think.
Addie.
Yeah. She is at like a carnival, kind of like the pier situation.
Say Jersey Shore-esque.
Yes, but California.
Yeah.
And she, you know, she can tell there's this disconnect with her parents, right? But they're not awful. They just clearly are not happy together.
Dad's like too fun, doesn't really know how to do the responsible thing.
He's not a good dad. Like, and you get the idea that he's not around a lot. Like, not enough. Like, for one, so they have this situation where he's playing ball, like he's trying to win a prize. He wins her a Thriller t-shirt, which is our first hint at Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
Which I can't wait to get to that. But we get Thriller, right? And the mom talks about, like, that scared her. The movie scared her. Like, it's just a music video, it terrified her. And the dad doesn't know that, right? So that's, like, the first time where, like, he isn't really around, right?
Yeah.
2 is, like, he's playing another game, and the mom is like, I need to use the bathroom, come with me. And she's like, no. And so then she pauses for a good time.
Like a minute.
Yeah. Before she's like, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to entrust you with my child. And it definitely has that aura of like, with my child, you have to like, I do not trust you.
Yeah.
But and she's so uncomfortable, but she does it. So it's like our first kind of, and I think no one really talks about it.
Yeah.
But I was like, I feel that. And I was like, oof. And of course, she's a kid. She walks off, right? And I went on like a whole rant the other day about how parents get shamed if like their kid walks off, right? Like kids do that, right? But parents also get shamed if they have like their kid on like a leash. Like when they have those little ropes to them, and it's just like, kids are gonna walk off. And especially if you have a kid that has like ADD or any other thing that does not make them listen to you because they're children and that's just how they are. And you are like, okay, this is how I keep them to me. Like, we should not be parent shaming. Right?
Yeah, there's like a whole thing where someone who did like before they had a kid, shamed like that idea, and then once they had one, we're like, wait,
wow,
no,
okay.
like
I commend you for taking care of your kid and being conscious of the fact that
they
like,
could
move around,
walk off into traffic at any time.
Yeah, but yeah, so that to the side because I had a whole moment about it. Anyway, she walks off. She ends up in this house of mirrors, right?
Yeah.
But before she gets in there, what we see is the house of mirrors has this decor of a Native American man, and it's like kind of like your not soul searching, but it's like your not even like spirit animal, but it's supposed to be like you're supposed to go into like the Native American hut and you're supposed to find yourself, right? Which is a big thing, us, right? She goes in, she immediately is like freaked out and she wants to leave because the lights go off. And then she stumbles upon her doppelganger.
Yeah.
Who's this little girl and has a creepy grin. I commend him for shooting film in a house of mirrors.
Yeah.
That's so difficult. And also duplicating all of these actors in these scenes. Like I watched, like the second time I watched all the really creative ways in which we don't have to see both of their faces on screen.
Yeah.
And I was like, yo, this is so good. So creative just from like my standpoint. But we have her and she's, you know, she gets spooked because she sees this. The person like attacks her and eventually she ends up outside.
Yeah.
Right.
We don't get that middle space.
Yeah. And she's like a little different. But now we see her and she's an adult and she has children. She's married to my husband, Winston Duke.
Oh, wait, let's go back. 15 minutes is how long she was gone. And that's important. 15 minutes comes up again.
Yeah. 15 minutes comes up a lot. But 15 minutes is how long she was gone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is like a lifetime for any parent.
Yeah.
It's enough time that she was like so traumatized. And like the dad even like criticized her. He's like, she wasn't in Nam. Like, why? What's wrong with her? Like, that's another thing that's like a remark to like, you know, Black families that don't understand that you can go to therapy and don't understand like mental health issues. Yeah. So it's like clearly that. But she's an adult. She comes back. She's got a family now. And she's uncomfortable the whole time. Right.
Yeah.
We see, they're like cute. We get to introduce to the family and the dynamics there. We got like the teenage daughter who doesn't want to do anything.
Yeah.
We have the son who's like a little different because he's just like a kid.
Yeah,
you know?
he's like a quirky
he's a complicated kid.
Little boy who's doing it.
And there's a lot of theories online that he is that they thought, well, okay, we're getting in spoiler town. We've been in spoiler town.
Spoiler towns. We've been wearing our spoiler pants. Like, we've been doing it.
Just so, because people might get back. People thought he might also be the tethered. Because of a few reasons. And here's what I'll say. So one reason is that when they're on the beach, he's digging tunnels instead of sandcastles, which is what traditionally kids are supposed to be doing. So there's that idea that he's thinking different. And he's also like underground, right?
Yeah.
Another thing is that he sees the one random guy who like is starting the chain like ahead of time.
Yeah.
And later when we see the picture that he drew of that, it's not from his point of view. And I freaked out in theaters because I was like, that is weird.
You don't draw things from other people's point of views.
Yeah, just draw like someone's looking at you from like a hidden place. Like I was like, this is weird for this kid to do. And so people were like, maybe it's like he has this disassociation with himself. So the theory was that he had been switched out with his tether like a summer before. Right.
Okay.
And that he like forgets his magic trick. There's also this thing. So the big reveal that's like it's an interesting reveal because it really tells the motive of this whole story is that Adelaide is actually a tether.
Yeah.
And that Red, who is her doppelganger, is the real Adelaide, who was actually switched out.
Yeah.
Right. So there's one hint to that in the beginning when they're in the car and they're listening to I Got 5 on it.
Yeah.
And they're talking about rhythm and she's snapping and she's like, you know, like, oh, you got to have rhythm. And she snaps and she's slightly off. And it's kind of weird. It's like weirdly off.
Yeah.
Not like on the off beat. It's literally just off.
Slightly off. Yeah.
And so is he. So it's like, oh, maybe they're both off. There's also this scene at the end after he kind of discovers or has potentially overheard that she is the tethered or at least that he heard her like weird sounds that she made when she was murdering Red.
Yeah.
So like he looks at her and there's like this knowing look, and people think that the look that she returns to him is like, I know you are really the Tether. Here's why all that's wrong.
Well, I feel like also face burns. He had face burns.
Yeah.
Like how would he?
So here, and that's a big reason why it's unreal. So that was like a Reddit rabbit hole I went down, which was fun. Rabbit hole. It's funny.
Yeah, because rabbits are down there.
Yeah, and also Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah.
But here's why it's wrong. So, one, that's a big reason. What I saw when I saw that look was that he is different because he's half Tether.
Yeah.
Right? Like he's probably more his mom than, he realized before. But also it's like him saying like, I see you. I know who you are. And I've always known that you were different. And now like we in this together.
Yeah.
And she's like, cool. That's what I saw that look as.
Yeah.
Because I was like, this makes sense.
I would argue same. I didn't know about the Reddit rabbit hole.
Yeah. The other reason, and this is why, because this sums up exactly what Us is about, right? Is that we have the son, Jason, who does magic tricks.
Yeah.
Right? And he does magic tricks with fire. All the tethers are slightly off. They're delayed. So they do everything at a delay because they have to experience what their person is experiencing.
Yeah.
Because that's what Us is, right? We have these people who are underground who are part of a government experiment that they just gave up on. And it was going to be
How American.
Yeah. They were going to use the government, like clones kind of things, the tethers, to control the people. But they weren't strong enough. So instead, they were just controlled. So they're just doomed to replicate whatever the people up there are doing, no matter what it's doing to them, and only using their resources that they have. So it's raw bunnies instead of eating like a delicate meal up top, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just like, and that's classism. So the biggest thing here is that Jason's tether, Pluto, has a mask on. And when he lifts his mask, we realize he is severely burned.
Yeah.
And the reason for this is that Jason has been playing with his trick of fire, and sometimes he gets it, right?
Yeah.
Pluto can never get it. It always goes off wrong because he is delayed, and so he catches on fire. So this is literally a commentary on the fact that like people in upper class positions are doing stuff that trickle down time affects those below them.
Yeah.
And they don't know. You don't know that that's affecting them, but undoubtedly you are.
Yeah.
And so he is being harmed because Jason's just living his life.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the whole point of this film, right? Is that we do not know the harm, and that we are so quick to villainize people even if they look just like us. Right?
Yeah.
When they ask, what are you? Like Gabe, Winston Duke, says, who are you people? And she goes, we're Americans. It's like, yeah, they are. Like, what do you mean? Of course, like, what else would they? They're the most American because they're just American government, like, guinea pigs or bunny rabbits. And it's like, it's such a fun ride as far as, like, horror goes. And, like, when we get these flashbacks to the reality and you see how they're, like, grotesquely like replicating what's happening up front, like the roller coaster, and they're like shaking and they're like waving their arms. And when you're in a roller coaster, you're screaming, but it's like fun. Yeah. And then you look at their faces down here. They don't know why they're doing that. Yeah. They are not getting that. They're just literally their hands up, and it's like devastating. Like, what if you couldn't control yourself? Yeah. And you just could only do what someone was making you do without any reason as to why. Like, they don't know. Yeah. and one of the things that she says is like, Red is like, and then, I forget, I don't know if she called her a princess or something, like it's when she's telling the story to Adelaide. Oh, the girl. She says, and then the girl found her Prince Charming, right? Yeah. And that's Gabe. And they fell in love. And then she goes, but for Red, it didn't matter if she loved him because Abraham, is the same as Gabe. Yeah. Is his tether. So it didn't matter if she loved him. Yeah. She had to be with that guy. Yeah. Right? And it's just like this forced relationship. And then it's like from there she has this kid. She doesn't have any help when she gives birth to her son in the top world. Adelaide had to have a C-section. Yeah. Down there, she had no resources. She doesn't have Medicaid. She doesn't have like any way to go to the hospital.
That speech, like, even especially rewatching it, I was
Yeah.
like, oh, that's awful.
Yeah.
Like they had to have sex, and she didn't want to touch him. And
No.
like,
And he's like
ugh.
so lost. And another reason why Pluto could not be Jason is because Jason can talk and Pluto can't talk.
Yeah,
And none of the tethers can talk except for Red. And the only reason she can is because she's not a tether.
yeah,
Right. And it's also this idea like if you took someone out of their already like their terrible upbringing and move them into like, you know, Prince and the Pauper style into this other life, like how much like how better your life is, right?
Yeah.
There's also this real, and I don't know if it was intentional, but when I was watching it the second time, I was like, this is phenomenal. And so when she was a kid and she couldn't talk because she's red,
Yeah.
she's a tether, the therapist is like, you need to get her to do something, right? And so she
Yeah.
ends up dancing, and the dancing frees her, and it also frees her tether.
yeah,
And lets them see that she's different, right? Because she can dance and she can find joy in it because she's a person too,
Yeah.
right? And I was like, that's so amazing because that's therapy.
yeah,
And it's like, and that empowered both of these people. And so I was
Yeah.
like, if that ain't a message, it should be. And that like therapy can free both of you, you
Yeah.
know, and that it put them both in empowering positions, right? Like
Yeah.
it freed them. And so I just thought that was phenomenal. That was one of my things. When we are back into the future, right? The sun sees the glass mirror maze, and they have changed it to be what is it? I can't remember the wizard's name.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, they changed it to a wizard. But it's literally the same house. Like, it still has the same trees. It still has the owl that pops out. It's literally
Yeah.
the same mirror maze. They just put a new face on it and called it Merle's Forest.
Merlin's.
Yeah, Merlin's, like, Forest of Dreams or something.
Yeah.
And that is the perfect, call to the fact that we have, like, one, gentrification, but we also have this thing in America where we just erase the tragedies that we've done.
Yeah.
Right? Like, where we're just like, what? The Trail of Tears? What? No, we call them Indians, not Native Americans. They weren't here first. We didn't, like, you know, do awful things to people that didn't look like us. Like,
They have like debates on like what parts of history to like include in textbooks for school.
Yeah.
And like the people making those decisions should not be making those
no.
decisions.
Yeah.
Like if you're a parent, you need to look at what's in your student's textbook because
Yeah.
it's not. Don't
Yeah.
trust the American's public
To do that,
education
yeah.
system or any education system because they're not the people making the decisions about what we should be teaching or not.
Yeah.
The ones who should be
like,
making
we
those
should not
decisions.
have a Columbus Day. You know?
Yeah.
We should have
You
Native
can make-
Peoples Day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Indigenous Peoples Day, right?
Yeah.
And that's like, it really is this big conversation about just like America just painting over and being like, it's better now.
Yeah.
Like look, it didn't happen.
And you know what a perfect example of that is a little bit? In the fact that we did not have off for Columbus Day this year. What they didn't do is just change the name to Indigenous Peoples Day and still give off.
Yeah.
There's like, you're happy, right? We got rid of it.
Yeah. No.
It's like, no, that wasn't the thing.
The thing is that we still have Americans who get mad when we try to take down statues that are, you know, commemorating awful people.
Yeah.
And instead we have like, people run over because they're protesting that. So,
Yeah.
So that's America, right?
The world's bad.
There's another thing
America's
that I
bad
thought
right
was
now.
interesting because I got
Plus
into this rabbit hole of like, what does it all mean? Where's all this stuff? And something I didn't pick up on, but I found in some site, and I'm really sorry that I don't quite remember what it was from because there was so much. Was that there's in the beginning at one of the booths, one of the carnies is wearing a Black Flag T-shirt, and later one of the twins from the White family is wearing a Black Flag T-shirt, but it's like a Forever 21 one, right? And so Black Flag is like a band that's like all anarchy and like let's like fight the system, and like it was worn by this carny because he was that, right?
Yeah.
Like he was like he living his life, he was just doing whatever, and now we have this ironic like, you know,
fashion.
yeah, and you know, if your parents weren't marriedization of this like band and ideology. right there in our face, right?
Yeah.
We also have this thing where Gabe, even though they are pretty well off, is struggling to be as wealthy and as like what he sees as, you know, the ideal is this white family. So he went out and got the boat. And then of course the guy's like, he has a yacht.
Yeah.
You know, and he's like, do you get this? Do you get that? And later he's just like, of course, you saw they got a new car. Like, of course he got that car just to spite me, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, no, he got it because that's what America told you to do, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, he's like, that's his flaw, is that he's trying to be this other family.
Yeah.
Right? And it's also that he like never really, I feel like he never really heard her.
Yeah.
There's so much where she's bearing her heart out to him and he's just like being cute dad. And what I loved about this was that he's this big guy. Like Winston Duke, M'Baku is huge, and he is taken out immediately, like out of the gate. Like he holds his own, but it's always kind of funny. And he like there's that whole scene where she's like, "You are not making the decisions anymore." Right?
Yeah.
Because she was like, I wanted to leave. We could have been out of here already. Right?
Yeah.
And it's this powerful moment that we just never get, right? Because when you have your like femme fatale, your last girl and stuff like that, there's certain tropes that have to go with that. And she was just like, no, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that with him is the code switching. So he, there's a scene, so in the middle of the night, the lights go out.
Yeah.
When she's trying to tell him they should leave. And the little boy shows up, and he's like, the one jump scare in the whole film is that he's all of a sudden there, and you're like, ah!
Yeah.
And he goes, there's a family in our driveway, which is funny, but also like super eerie, because it's a child saying it, and also like, what a family doing in there? And so Lupita's immediately like, calling the police, get my kids. Like, this is not okay. And Gabe's, of course, like, what? Like, I'm a big man.
Like, I
don't know
this.
what danger it, like, you know? And she's just like, no, instincts in, like, we're going. And so he goes outside and he's just like, you know, you picked the wrong house to make a joke about, but he's still being like cordial. He's still being himself. Right?
Yeah.
And so, and then it doesn't work. And he's like, all right. And goes in, he gets a bat, which is the most American weapon, right?
Yeah.
And he goes out there and then he code switches and he puts that like the deepness in his voice.
Yeah.
And is like, if you want to play, then we gon' play. You
Yeah.
know? And he's just like, and then he's like, you need to leave. Like, he gets all deep about it. And then they start walking. He's like, hey. And like, can't, like, he's clearly out of control of the situation.
Yeah.
But it's such a wonderful example of like code switching.
Yeah.
Because he really did genuinely try as himself.
Yeah.
And then he was like, all right, I guess I got to put on these pants. Right.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't work. And then he's like, call the cops. And she's like, I already did. They're 14 minutes away. Because it took 15 minutes is what the ambulance quoted them.
Yeah.
Which is a long time.
Yeah.
Right. Because they're in the middle of nowhere. White people like to be out in the middle of nowhere. Like, what are you doing out there?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's one of the scary moments. And then a lot of it is, like, I think what rubs people wrong about it, because it is a horror movie, is that there's a lot of dialogue.
Yeah.
There's a lot of just, like, exposition. But that's the whole point. Like,
Yeah,
that's
'cause you
what's
gotta know
scary.
what's happening.
What's scary is the ideas, dog. It's not what's happening to you. It's what we're trying to tell you. And that's exactly what Get Out. Like, that's why people thought it was a comedy, because they didn't realize that they should be scared. Because the right people were scared and other people didn't get it. Right?
Yeah.
And this whole time, like, it does stop the, like, momentum, right? And we're, like, you're kind of halted and you're like, what's going on? But, like, if that wasn't there, people would be mad.
I thought it was a fantastic film. I thought Get Out was a fantastic film. They were both fantastic. And it's like, anyone who isn't seeing them for what they are just needs to keep watching until they get to that point and keep educating themselves societally until they get to that point. Because once you do, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
And also, if you're not getting it, you need to question your stance.
Yeah, you got to see your point of view. You got to see what your eyes aren't seeing through.
Yeah.
Another thing is, like, music that is used is super fun. There's this, like, scene where they have their own Alexa kind of thing, but it's called Ophelia.
Yeah,
and they're playing.
That sounds dope.
They're playing the Beach Boys at first.
Yeah.
Which is one type of, and this is another, like, this is a video I saw, and again I feel bad. But it was this idea that, like, the Beach Boys represent a very specific type of California.
Yeah.
Right? And that's, like, the white, blissful, like, we're on the beach and we're surfing and we're having a good time.
Yeah.
Kind of California. Right?
Yeah.
And as they're getting murdered, the wife calls to Ophelia and says, please call the police. Or call the police. Ophelia, call the police. And she says, playing F the Police by NWA. And then all of a sudden that plays. And it's comical. But then when you're thinking about it, it's like, that's an entirely different part of the same state.
Yeah.
Like, that's California as well.
Yeah.
And, like, as much as you can get, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's this dichotomous, like, thing that we're kind of, like, brought into. And it's so crazy that these, like, two things can exist at the same time. And that's, like, exactly what he's, like, confronting us with. Like, everything is on purpose. Like, I don't know what else to say about it.
Yeah. And he actually has another really good quote when he's talking about this that I read. Specifically, I got this, it was on biography.com still, but it was from something else. But he's kind of talking about how he's proving both points, that everything is about race and that it also isn't, and then like how he ties those things together.
Yeah.
So he's like, it's important to me that we tell Black stories without it being about race. I realized I had never seen a horror movie of this kind where there's an African-American family at the center that just is. After you get over the initial realization that you're watching a Black family in a horror film, you're just watching a movie.
Yeah.
And you're just watching people. I feel like it proves a very valid and different point than Get Out, which is not everything is about race. Get Out proved that point, and everything is about race.
Yeah.
I did both points.
Yeah.
So he's always saying two things, even in the same film.
That race is important, but it should not be the thing, right? And that's like, and when I did the panel, a big thing that I was thinking when I watched this and what I went in hopeful about was to see a family that is a Black family, right?
Yeah.
And that they just are. Like, they're all different. Right? They're not stereotypes. They're just a family.
Well-rounded characters, like developed charers on screen.
And like all natural. And also like proud, right? Like
he has his
not
sweatshirt.
Yes, yeah. He's wearing his Howard sweatshirt. Like their hair isn't trying to, like, they didn't do what's her name from Ma?
Yes.
They put those awful wigs on Octavia Spencer. Like, no one is trying to do that. Everyone is just who they are.
Yeah.
And it's like, I was really excited to see a film where that's it, and it's not the commentary, like, overtly, like the way Get Out is, right? That they can just exist, and we could have a horror movie where that happens, right? Because I feel like that's a step in the direction that we need. That if we can just get accustomed to it. The thing about it is that because it is a Black family, there is still discussion about that, because we have not gotten to the point where that doesn't matter. Yeah. Well, or not matter, but isn't, like, that we can take it for granted, kind of, right? Yeah. And so, and the fact that this is a family that we're just supposed to be like, it's a family. The fact that they're all Black is still a conversation. Yeah. And that really shows that we haven't come as far as we thought. Yeah. Right. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I loved it.
It was
right?
fantastic.
And I want to see more of that. I want to see more.
He said he's doing it. He said he's dedicated his life
yes.
to making these things.
Yeah. And we'll have so much of that. And I think it'll be really fun. But yeah, there's so much to this film, even in itself.
He's just saying everything. Yeah. He's just saying it all. Yeah. And he has this other thing where he's talking about, like, not wanting to make things that aren't his. Yeah. Like, he didn't want to, like, do remakes, really. He wanted to create things that were unique to him. And that were, like, his stories, you know what I mean? And, like, that we're catching him so early. Yeah. It's just really cool.
Yeah. And I definitely imagine we'll cover him again, because, I mean, he produced the Twilight Zone. He's going to produce Lovecraft Country. Oh, one other thing about us.
He's young, too. He could be out here for a long time.
I'm excited. One other thing about us is their costume, right? It's the best costume because anyone could do it, right? It's a red jumpsuit. It's sandals. It's the scissors. And it's one glove. Yeah. And
which is... Yep.
Yeah, right? Here's the thing.
Go ahead, say.
Jordan, in an interview, it was a terrible interview. He was so uncomfortable.
Oh, no.
And I felt really bad. I'm not going to shout out what the interview was because I feel bad. But the guy was trying so hard to be, like, cool. And Jordan was like, all right, you are trying too hard. Like, just ask me some questions. Like, you make me feel like a jerk. Like, it was super awkward. But they talk about this costume, and the guy, like, offhandedly is like, oh, you invented the cheapest costume. And he was like, okay, but here's what it means. Yeah. He goes, it's one glove, because there's 3 people I can think of who have one glove. And he goes, Michael Jackson, obviously. Yeah. Because Thriller. Yeah. He says Freddy Krueger. Uh-huh. And then he says O.J. Simpson. One glove, right? And the reason why those 3 are important is that this is what we're talking about with tethers. There's another part of you that's hidden underground that the rest of the world is not seeing. Yeah. This is not a mistake that that's what he chose to do. It's not a mistake that he put Thriller in there after having Neverland's documentary come out to show what the true colors of Michael Jackson were.
Yeah.
And to have the fact that, like, you know, Freddy Krueger is a villain, but he's a villain in the dreams, right? In reality, he's nothing. Yeah. And then to have someone like OJ, who was like this star, he was OJ. He was everyone's favorite. Yeah. He was this jolly guy. And on the back end was this monster, right? Yeah. And so that's like, he was like, this is no mistake that we decided this.
Yeah. I wasn't just like, oh, it's cheap.
Yeah. Yes. Guy who's trying to be quirky. I was like, I want to strangle this guy. It's unfair that he gets to interview Jordan. And
I want to interview Jordan. Let's go.
Like, I wouldn't even have anything else to say.
Message him. Tell them that the Ghouls Next Door, specifically Gabe, is really excited. I'm like also really excited, but Gabe really wants it.
I would lose it. I would cry probably. We love him so much. And that's what I'm just saying. Like, there's so many layers. And, like, you could watch this, like, 7 times, and you'd probably find something new and minute, but you'd be like, oh. Like, the kid has a toy ambulance that he uses to hold the door open. Yeah. And later, they escape in an ambulance. Yeah. Like, there's all these, like, foreshadowing. There's all this fun. You know, there's the conversation of the fact that Jason can control Pluto so strongly, probably because he's young. Right? Yeah. It's like, what are they doing? We didn't even talk about Hands Across America and how it was a mess. Yeah. You know, that they, like, raised, I think it was, like, 30 million. Yeah. But they had to pay, like, something like 15 plus million to pay for, like, just the whole affair. Yeah. So, like, it was half of that actually went to the thing that they sought out to do. Yeah. So it was like, Jordan was like, this is, like, exactly what, like, you know, the era of time, like in the 80s, where America was like, we're all being, you know, fun. We're all trying to make the world a better place. And we're all in, like, this hyper color. And in reality, we have the war on drugs. Yeah. And we have all these, like, things where we're just, like, replicating the new Jim Crow. Yeah. Right? And we're just further, you know, instituting these systems, you know, from, you know, schools to, you know, prison system pipeline. Yeah. And we have, and it's just always something. Like, yeah, I could be all day because it is. Cause
America, we haven't existed a very long time, but we're really out here doing messed up stuff.
Yeah. Well, make no mistake. We've caught up to the rest of them in our own way.
Yeah. We just, like, full rapid force.
Yeah. Yeah.
Horror.
The only trickle down that's happening is pain, not economic. Not real.
Yeah, feelings. Yeah, I said feelings. Let's talk about feelings. Okay. And all that spooky stuff. I love spooky stuff.
All right. So if you like it, we're Americans. Yeah. Because the tellers are Americans. And I explicitly just want to say they are not the bad guys. Yeah. And I think that's interesting because there's a very overt bad guy in Get Out. It's very distinct. And in this, there's lots of murdering happening, but it's in this, like, lens of, like, well,
this whole time.
Sometimes, you know, direct action gets the goods. They needed liberation. It's their turn. She said, it's our turn to be up here. All right, sorry. She said it, and she was like, you had your turn. You had your turn. Yeah. It's our turn now. And if you don't like it, it's...
like separated milk
and Fruit Loops.
Fruit Loops.
Because that's
deconstructed bowl of cereal.
Deconstructed Fruit Loops.
You serve that at a fancy luncheon and you call it deconstructed.
Yeah. It's at your continental breakfast. Yeah. That's another Camp Hill reference. Where you, it's at brunch. Yeah. And you're like, can I get the deconstructed Fruit Loops? The deconstructed
loops of fruit.
Yes. With a side of leche. Because, you know, they like appropriating. Yeah. And they think it's fun. Yeah. Fruit Loops con leche.
Yeah. Avec. Or no, avec is French.
You think it's saying that too. I don't know.
I don't know. That's what we're saying. That one's the bad one.
Yes. So, Kat, for the topic of Jordan Peele,
Oh my god, it's all the best stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we're Americans. It's the whole thing. Everything he does is good.
Yeah.
I really would be truly devastated if ever anything happens where he's problematic.
Yeah.
I'd be devastated.
Yeah, I don't see it. Him and Chelsea Peretti, they rocking the world.
Yeah.
They are making it. They got baby.
Yeah.
They got their
A
own
cute
existence.
baby.
Yeah. They're doing it. She's awesome. She's awesome in her own right. And I think that's cool. And I think it's really funny, their relationship, only because of all the Key and Peele skits.
Yeah.
And like the little like in-betweens where he's like, I'm never getting married. And like, I don't like commitment and blah, blah, blah. And now it's like he's married with a baby.
Yeah,
so it's like,
I mean,
ha, 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 you grew up.
Someone who was also out there being like that. I was like, I'm gonna die alone and it's fine.
Until you find your person.
Now I'm like, no, I'm not. We're gonna have kids, I guess. I don't know. You know,
Yeah,
maybe we don't, but we're gonna be together forever. So it's fine.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I'd say
your person.
For Jordan Peele, it's I love it. I love everything he does. Funny, serious.
Yeah.
I love all his little like the pictures when you look him up, and he just kind of looks like he doesn't really know what to do with his hands.
Yeah.
In them, but it's like it's kind of cute.
Yeah, he's a cute dude. Like you just like kind of like are like, oh.
Yeah.
Like just by default.
Yeah. But he's always like super cool. I loved how he's just always himself. Like even like in Key and Peele, like Keegan-Michael Key would always be in like these really like fancy shirts, and he always had like this crisp style. And then like Jordan Peele would be like, I'm gonna wear this flannel, and I'm not gonna apologize for being myself. Yeah. And it was always like, yeah. And he's just absolutely hilarious, and he's a genius to boot.
Yeah, he's so smart.
This whole situation.
Like, just how intentional he is I think, like, the most beautiful thing about it.
Yeah.
Like, he just always is really doing it. And, like, even in Key and Peele, where it's supposed to be funny.
Yeah.
He's really, saying stuff. I love his hype man character. It's my favorite one of all time.
I like his most local. I like his... Am I over here, detective?
Yes! With the mirrors!
With the mirrors!
It's so good!
Yeah, and literally anything.
He's just so funny.
It's great, yeah.
And just smart and great.
Yeah. Don't forget Megan, number 1.
Oh my
Better
god!
than River.
Yes!
First of all, I'm not a remote, so I can't be controlled. And I'm like,
so good.
Screech. Yeah, I love him, and I love that he's being this like torchbearer,
Yeah.
And there's a lot of conversation. I mean, like horror noir. We had Ashley Blackwell on talking about horror noir, and if you watch that film, he's quoted a lot because he is the future of black horror.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it's also like he showed it. Like, Get Out came out at the same time that it was, like, Black Panther. And what it was it showing that these narratives that otherwise would have gotten shot down, right? The fact that people came out, right? Like, in numbers.
Like,
it was like,
ticket money.
We would love to see those films.
And we've been waiting.
Yeah. And I think, like, people are still going to do it. And I think that he'll keep doing stuff. And other people now can. Yeah. I mean, we still work. It's not fixed. Again, racism
obviously.
isn't over, right? It's just like great to see that it could happen and that you can be creative. Like Get Out and Us is why we make this podcast.
Yeah.
To tell you that horror in like any media is telling something. Yeah, it's telling you something that you're not even thinking about. And he does it in a way that like it's nerdy in like this proud way. Yeah. It's like, yeah, of course it's this. Like, I'm not even gonna like hide like any of the stuff behind like gore and unnecessary things, right? I'm gonna put it in when I need it, but it doesn't need it. What it's really about is the message. The media is the message. The medium is the message, and that's what I went to school for. So we love you.
That's great.
And the film scout.
Oh, also fantastic. Number 1. Yeah. Awesome.
Yes, 10 out of 10. Yeah.
Yeah. No, definitely. There's not a single thing I didn't like about either of these films.
Yeah.
Go watch them again the whole time.
Now that you've heard all my rants about them.
Yeah.
And tell us what you think at theghouls@gmail.com.
Yeah.
If I missed anything, I would love to hear about it because I would love to watch it again. If I missed something to Get Out, if you want to be like, you totally missed the mark here. Yeah. If there's, if you don't agree, you can do it. If you know Jordan Peele. Want to shoot him our way?
You want us to be friends?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Happy New Year and all that. We'll see you next year.
Next year.
Yeah.
2020.
2020 vision.
Hey.
Roaring 20s. Yeah.
But let's not have the economic devastation that comes with it.
Yeah. No. We're already in this economy. Yeah. So we'll see you next year. We have a lot of stuff in tune and ready for you guys.
Yeah.
We're planning it out. It's gonna get real goofy, real fun.
Yeah.
And we're diving into we're expanding our media, but we're still horror ladies.
Yeah.
We're still talking about what's scary out there.
We're talking about spooky stuff, but with a more wide lens.
Yeah. Yes. Well, don't get married.
They'll eat your kids.